Do God's will.
The kind of revolution that the world needs is a Christian revolution.
If you want a miracle, you've got to expect it to happen.
You are the recipients of God's grace and God's blessings, and you rejoice in that reality.
Welcome to Life Today Live. Great to have you here today. Look, I'm a film lover, a movie lover. You know, I studied film in school. Did not go that direction with my life. Obviously went television. But it gave me an appreciation for film and the filmmaking process. And so, you know, when I go in and watch a movie, I'm a little more critical. I was a movie critic for a while, you know. But when I see a film that is a truly well-made film, I feel like I know it. It's not just, oh, they've got good actors, or, oh, it was a fun story. Like, quality filmmaking to me is a whole art unto itself. And when you get a message that just really strikes you hard and resonates and is uplifting, you know, has some meat to it, some spiritual value to it. Well, now you've combined the beauty of sharing God's truth and love with an art form that is a lot harder than you think it is. And we have that in a movie that you may not have heard of. In fact, I went and saw a screening of this a few months ago in Nashville, and I had some extra time on the closing day afternoon, and I thought, well, I've seen all these other big films that they've been promoting, you know, here. Well, what is this one? It was called Possum Trot. It is now called The Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot. And I went, what is Possum Trot? I'm from Texas. I didn't even know Possum Trot is a little unincorporated town, sort of near Houston, close to Louisiana border, primarily African-American community. And so this film, The Sound of Hope, tells a story that happened there that is amazing. You need to see the movie. It will be in theaters on Thursday, July 4th. And so spare yourself the crowds of the lakes and the heat and the bugs of the picnics outside. Stay indoors. Go see The Sound of Hope. You will not regret it. And I'm excited to have the filmmakers here because it wasn't a big studio thing. It is a labor of love made by Joshua and Rebekah Weigel. The two of them, husband-wife team, wrote the film. Rebekah produced the film, and Josh directed the film. And I'm just excited about this because it's an amazing film. So welcome, both of you, to Life Today Live. Great to have both of you.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Randy.
So good to be here.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
Let's jump into this. And my first question, especially, again, like I said, not a big studio. You know, nobody came to you and said, we want you to make this movie and here's your multi-million-dollar budget, right? How hard was it to get this film made?
Yeah, it was very difficult because it didn't really fit nicely in any box, current box. It's a little, we really wanted to make sure that it was authentic, the story was told with excellence, and really these kids went through really challenging, difficult things, and we wanted to show what the kids are going through, really to ignite people to help them and to get involved. And so it didn't really fit in the faith-based market as much, but it also is just full of hope, full of Jesus, full of redemption. It didn't really fit in the Hollywood bucket either. And so we struggled for a long time to find the right financing. And we're so excited that the CEO of Care Portal and the Global Orphan Project actually got the vision, read the script, and he just went to bat for it and found kingdom donors to donate all of the money we needed to make this film and to make it the way that we felt God had called us to make it.
Well, you made it well, so congratulations on that. I didn't know any of the actors, listed. Obviously didn't know who you guys were. So, I mean, this is truly a labor of love, what we call a small, I don't know what the budget was, but it's, a bit of an independent project. But you pulled it off in a way that doesn't feel like an indie film. Josh, how hard was it to make this movie really come alive, because you really nailed it?
Thank you. I'm really glad to hear that, for sure. I mean, it's, we didn't have all that you would need to get it to the level you're talking about, at first glance. And really one of the hardest things about it was you've got a story about 22 families and 77 kids, and you've got about 2 hours to get that to work on screen and to be compelling and capture all of it. And so that was another challenge to it. And that can, that can take away from some of the more, fun elements of filmmaking, because you've just got so many people and so many scenes that you might have to deal with. And so I think it's really encouraging to hear that's how you felt. That was the goal. Everything we do, we try to do with cinema in mind. We feel like if it can't work on the screen and capture all the things about cinema that we love, then you probably shouldn't do it. And so it took a while to, just even in the script stage, to get it to a point where we felt like this is going to be interesting to watch. People are going to want to be in this world. And so, one of the things we did was try to capture everything authentically and also give it kind of a sense of timelessness, sense of scale, tried to create scenes that were interesting and places you wanted to be. Everything is as relatable as possible. It's a story about a community that maybe a lot of people have never even been in, but we tried to really connect it with what we all sort of experience, just in life and relationships. And then within that world, we placed this story. And I think, there's a lot of intentionality, though, that goes into what you sensed from it, just from the choices of camera and the people we work with and those kinds of things.
Yeah. It's fun to watch, even though it's hard to watch at times. All right, I'm going to quit teasing you guys out there in the audience. Let's take a look at the trailer. This is The Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot, and we'll be right back with the maker, the filmmaker.
It's hard to feel like I'm the only one who sees these things. 70% of the kids in the system are there because of neglect. The other 30% are put through hell. We need your help.
Can you imagine our kids on their own? We can't just look away. The state ain't no family.
Are you sure these people want us?
I know they do.
You can call me Mama. Oh, Lord.
If we can't wrap our arms around the most vulnerable, then what do we have? Noise! And the children can't take the noise anymore.
This is something that we must do.
22 families want to adopt. Whole town wants kids now.
That's about right.
What's happening with Possum Trot could mean a huge change for the system.
We want the ones that nobody else wants.
Who hurt you, baby? I'm not giving up on you. You can't give up on me either. What we gonna do? Everybody's falling apart.
I'm doing the best I can.
The real world hits hard.
I don't want to be here!
I can't give him back. We gotta work on this together. We your people now. And love never gives up.
That is The Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot, in theaters July 4th. Go ahead and make plans. Go find out where the film's going to be. You can go to angels.com or wherever you look for movies and find out where the film will be. But get in there opening weekend. That will keep it in theaters and allow more people to see it. And I really do believe this is a film that needs to be seen. All right, so Joshua and Rebekah Weigel are with me. They made the film. And I'm curious, either one of you, why, really, if you're going to make a movie and you want to be successful at it, I don't think that the foster system is high on the list of topics that you go, yeah, that's going to be a winner. I mean, it's, again,
Right.
Great film, but why? Obviously, there's something more to this than just a script.
Well, Rebekah, you could jump in on the with the aspect of the work that she's done, and our personal connection to this is deep. We've adopted two of our kids and care very much about this. and so much has grown from that place, and from Rebekah's work, and from our desire to really bring the most important things to the forefront. There's so many stories out there, and we have very little time on this earth, and so we want to pick the stories, tell the stories that matter most. So that's part of why we chose that one. We really felt compelled to as well. It's a crisis right now in America that a lot of people don't know about. So there's a very real issue going on that needs attention. And so why not, take on the most important stories, the ones that are the most relevant, and bring them into a movie so that people are entertained, but also sense like there's something really important about this one.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a, collection of all of those motives.
I'll just add to that, when we started this project 8 years ago, I really don't think this was very relevant at all. We were kind of like, really, God, like this is the one you want us to focus on? We sought him, but now here we are today, where fighting for children is one of the main issues in our culture, and especially in the church, that people are realizing like, wow, like our children are being assaulted, they're being from so many fronts. And even with, the overturning of, and everything that's happened with Roe versus Wade, I think there's a lot of attention on the church. Like, well, what are you going to do about the kids that are in the foster system that no one wanted, that were not given up, And I think this issue is so relevant right now today. And it's an opportunity for the church to stand up and to say, no, we do care. We are truly pro-life. We care about children from conception all the way through, and we're going to fight for kids.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you look at, like, I don't know, the story of Moses in the Bible, right? You've got the guy who couldn't speak, that was to address Pharaoh. He had to have Aaron speak for him. You got basically, the one that people wouldn't expect to be raised up by God to do this great work of God. What are your thoughts when you look? This is a Possum Trot, the township. I mean, you can't even call it a town, and it's working class African American community, and yet you look at the wealth in other areas and other churches who could actually maybe address the problem a little easier. And this is, part in the film. I won't spoil it for everybody. But what do you think about the fact that we are learning something from what we might consider the most unlikely people, that is really a wake-up call and a huge, valuable lesson?
Yeah, I think that's what's so, one of the things that's so important about it is that you have this community that, like so many others in this nation around the world, that are just trying to get by and be good people and make, great families. And you don't have a lot of extra time. You don't have the, the high level education and all the training you think you might need when you're talking about an issue like this and caring for kids that have been through the kinds of trauma that these kids have been through. So that's important, though, because one of the misconceptions about foster care and taking this whole thing on is that it is something for specially trained people or specially called people. And God doesn't give us that out. He's put that responsibility, he's put that responsibility on all of us in some way or another. We are meant to come to the aid of the most vulnerable, come to the aid of orphans and widows, as it says in James. And so we don't get to say, well, that's not for me, that's for those other people. And this community did that. They just found out, they felt compelled by God. They found out that there's kids suffering around them, and they just went for it. They dove in. They didn't ask all the questions that you might, scare yourself asking. And it's hard, it's there's nothing about getting into this world's most difficult problems that's easy and neat and clean. Like, it is a war, and there's a battle for these kids' lives. There is a battle for these kinds of things that connect to all kinds of other issues in our society. We think of foster care as this one isolated thing, but it's not. I mean, when you live in that place, you've experienced the brokenness that's led you there. It leads to all kinds of other problems. And so we just want people to understand that this is for everyone in some way or another to get involved, and that's from God. You may not be the one to actually foster and do the adopting, but there's a lot of other ways to serve and help. And this community was a perfect example of that.
Since this is a film based on a true story, I mean, very true to the true stories, I'm curious about some of the reactions. First of all, what has been the reaction of the people whom you portray in the community that you portray in the film? Because I saw them at the very, very end, or the end credits. How have they responded to it?
They've been very positive. Bishop Martin said, I wouldn't change anything about the movie, which we were really pleased, because it's challenging telling true stories, because so many characters, and we felt the responsibility to really, truly capture it and get it right. It's one reason we actually moved our family from Los Angeles to Deep East Texas to tell this story, was so that we could just immerse ourselves in their world and go to church with them and get to know these characters and spend a lot of time with them. And so we really listened to them, and especially the kids. The kids said, hey, this story's been told a lot, and it's been told a lot from the parents' point of view. Would you tell it from our side too? And so we really tried to incorporate the view of the child and what the children are going through. And it's really working. When people are leaving, their hearts are being really moved towards the children. And I think that's so important with this issue in particular, because kids in the foster system are protected for obvious reasons, but it's also, it can hinder people from getting involved because they never see the children, they never hear from them, and they never hear their story.
Interesting. And that's the other reaction I wanted to ask about, because there were tears in the screening, and it wasn't a lot of people. There were maybe 20 people in this screening that I was at, and afterwards there was a little bit of a silence, sort of an exhale, and that's not a normal movie experience, even if you're like, oh, that was great, but I mean, there was almost a heaviness and a seriousness after the film, because you're hitting people deep. Are you seeing that over and over? You have to be.
Oh yeah, and you're talking about something that is an answer to prayer, because when I was younger, I felt like I was going to make movies. I was probably 12 years old, and I wanted to do that. I loved movies, and then I felt like I want people to experience God somehow in that. But I wasn't very interested in the typical faith media or entertainment. I just couldn't relate.
Well,
so
it wasn't very good. Let's be honest.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's come a long way, but still, But one of the things that I was praying over the years was that people would experience him. They would experience God in the theater. They'd experience him in the stories. And so this is something that's beyond us. We're seeing right now God meet people in the theaters. And what you're talking about is what we prayed for. This is a big risk, honestly, as filmmakers, to tell a story that in some ways could scare people off. And there's one reason why the faith-based industry wasn't interested in this story, because they felt like this is too scary. People don't want to know about this. They don't want to know about what kids are experiencing. And we said, no, well, that's not how we work. And so there's a lot of prayer that goes into this. And what we're seeing is people feeling drawn into something that, maybe would have been scary before they walked into that theater, but that's not how they see it after this. They feel a sense of connection. They feel a sense of responsibility. They feel a sense of compassion. And as a filmmaker, on one hand, people want to feel awe. They want to feel wonder. We go and we get entertained because that's what we're after. We want to feel deep things and powerful things. And so somehow in this film, and I really believe this, so much of this is just way beyond our own power, but there is a deep well that's opening in some people's hearts, and people are experiencing very deep emotions, and I'm talking about people across the board. kids who've been in the system, people who've never even thought twice about it. And so it's encouraging, and I would hope people understand that that's what's in store for you. When you go to this film, you're going to experience something really interesting and special.
Yeah, I don't think most people would know this, but you're pushing the bounds of the Christian film, and I don't know you don't really want to categorize it straight that way, but I mean, it's about a pastor. I mean, you've got serious biblical truth, played out. But I actually had a screenplay rejected by a Christian film company several years ago. They asked me to submit it. I wasn't looking for it, but then they kicked it back, and they didn't tell me. They didn't tell me going in that they had. It was very kind of rigid, like you can't discuss these things. I'm like, it's in the Bible. It's like you need to have an altar call at the end. It's like that doesn't really fit the story, And so your film doesn't fit the sort of what has been the successful, marketable Christian film box. And if they do, that's fine. It's just we need to be true to the story, in my opinion. My question is, for the other reactions, I am curious how sort of the Christian film industry has responded, and even Christians at large. I mean, are they okay with it? Because there's parts of it that are, I want to say rough. I mean, I don't want to portray the film. It's not like
it's not rated R. It's not like people might think as they hear you. And I get exactly what you mean. People have to understand when we're talking about this, we're talking about a genre, something that's become a genre that is meant to meet the widest possible group within that community. And so the extremes are usually buffed off and not, we don't go to them. And I'm with I'm very concerned about content, very concerned about what we expose ourselves to as Christians. And we're, it's a real problem out there, but there's a need for authenticity. There's a need as a storyteller. There's a need, especially as a filmmaker, storyteller, to be able to go to real places that at least get you close enough that you feel like you've been there and you've touched on something real. So there's that line between going too far and taking things to a level of darkness that we should not go.
Right.
And then there's being insincere and inauthentic and detached and disconnected, and we usually see that. We don't usually believe people are experiencing what we're watching them experience on screen. So this is, the way we create, there has to be a sense of authenticity that's grounded in there that no one ever questions. And then we're careful how far we go with those things. But I want to move people. And when you see a child in trouble, you can't just say a child's in trouble. To some degree, you have to bring them into the world that you're creating.
Yeah.
And that's where the movement happens. That's where you are changed and affected emotionally and spiritually. It's like reading text versus seeing a picture. And I think that's one of the things we can do as filmmakers is and an industry is refuse the box.
Yeah. Right.
Refuse the sandbox. We call it the sandbox. There's enough pressure from the business to keep Christians in a sandbox and give you a few toys to play with. We need to break out of that. And, part of that is what we're talking about here is embracing a level of authenticity and certain level of, cinema standards. And then let's tell the stories in that place.
What's funny is I would almost guarantee that some of these people that are forcing the sandbox, you go home and check their Netflix list, and it ain't in the sandbox.
No, exactly.
But the other reaction I'm curious about, Rebekah, and I don't know, so I'll ask the question: have a lot of non-Christians seen the film, and if so, how have they responded?
Yeah, and that's something that even on set. So we did this as a union production. We wanted it to be done with excellence. And our crew, most of them were not believers, would cry, even on set during scenes. And so we started, and they said, you're going to be surprised who comes to this movie. I'll never forget our UPM saying, you're going to be surprised who responds to this. And we're seeing that. And the very first pre-screening we did, we had, someone who did not identify and have like a strong faith, or I don't know if they had any faith. And he wept through the whole film. And at the end pulled us aside and said, if church was like that, I'd go to church.
Oh, wow.
And in screenings, people are coming out saying, I left the church years ago, and I think I gave up prematurely. I'm going back to church. And they're seeing, because we've been able to elevate the church and say, this is what we're called to, church. This is the beauty of the church. When we're operating the way that we're called, and we're loving each other, we're caring for the vulnerable, we're coming around, we're bearing each other's burdens, and it's being shown as beautiful. And so we kind of feel like we're taking people to church in Possum Trot at Bennett Chapel, and we're showing the world what the church is meant to do. And it's attractive and it's appealing, and they're wanting, so I think we're actually going to, this film is going to reach outside of the churches.
Well, it's also they were talking about how it was like they were experiencing the real Jesus when they read the script or they saw the story and how it unfolded. That's what they were talking to us about. Like that is more like the Jesus I have in my mind. And there was this disconnect between what so many of us as believers, how we live, unfortunately, and do, and then what they saw in this story. So it's like, it doesn't get any better than that. And to see them actually be drawn into that, not repelled by it, but drawn in, because they knew, a lot of them knew, like, this isn't something I could ever do. But this community did this. I mean, what could compel you to do this and sacrifice comfort in your own life? It just validated what we talk about so much.
That may be exactly why the film I thought was so powerful is because it is showing really what Christianity should look like and does look like in many cases.
Yeah,
but it's not all polished up and cleaned up. It's a little ugly and a little messy and a little heartbreaking at times. But that's life. And I just I loved it. All right, you get in the theaters July 4th. Josh and Rebekah, I appreciate you guys so much. Not just the work that you've done, but you spending time here, letting our audience know about it. I really hope you guys watching will get out there in the theaters. And if you missed it, if you're watching this interview sometime after, go find it. You can go to angel.com. That's they're doing the distribution on it. But seek this movie out. But if you can get in the theaters opening weekend, that will keep it in theaters, and more people will see it, and people need to see this. Anything you guys want to add before I let you go?
Well, I just would add that when people see this movie, they're going to really experience a cinematic experience. It's not just an issue. It's not a public service announcement. This is a movie. We love that. That's what we're passionate about. But you're going to also experience something really meaningful. And my hope is that people will come in with an open heart and mind. And there's an invitation into being part of a solution to a massive crisis right now in our nation that everybody has, will fit into just right. So go with open arms, go with open hearts, and I think you'll be surprised maybe because it doesn't have all the flashy stuff. Tom Cruise isn't in the movie, but we're right there in the 4th of July season, and I think you'll see why once you've experienced it.
Yeah. Rebekah, anything from you?
Yeah, we need people to take their churches and their friends and family to opening weekend, support the film. This is a film that, like Josh said, doesn't have big stars, doesn't have a big director, and we need the grassroots support. And so take your family and friends out, and I think you'll really enjoy it too. It's not just hard. I know we've talked about a lot of the, gritty stuff, but it's also funny and hopeful, and you'll leave with happy tears.
It's beautiful. I used to watch the Oscars like it was the Super Bowl. I don't anymore because Hollywood's become so insulated and self-aggrandizing. Seriously, you legit, and I don't say this to anybody just because they do an interview here on the program. I'm seeing, the caliber of acting and even the directing, cinematography, screenplay, all those things. I would put those suckers up for Oscar. It's that kind of film.
Wow, Randy,
honest to God, it is that kind of film, and I want the whole world to see it. So again, thank you both. Appreciate you both being here. Thank you for watching. And don't just get out there and do it. Take your friends, take your family, take your church group, whatever. You will thank me. Come back and leave a comment and say you were right. Thank you. I went and saw the film, and I loved the experience, but it moved me on a level. You won't regret it. The Sound of Hope, the Story of Possum Trot, in theaters July 4th. Appreciate you guys being here. Hit the share button. Hit it now. If you haven't liked, follow, or subscribe, do that. We'll see you again next time on Life Today Live.